Integers, Part 4. In today's lesson, students will learn how to multiply and divide integers. How to do what? Very good. Now that you know how to add and subtract integers, we're going to start multiplying and dividing integers. What are we going to do? Multiplying and dividing integers. And there are some different rules that apply to multiplication and division of integers. So we're going to go ahead and there are three main rules that you have to follow. We're going to go ahead and write these down. So again, we're talking about multiplication and division. They go together even though they are opposite. But the same rules apply. So we're going to write when multiplying or dividing. Okay, because you're going to work with two numbers at a time, okay, or integers. If both integers are positive, okay, if they both have a positive sign, okay, the answer will be positive, just like same signs add and keep. That's the same, okay? So the answer will be positive. So I'm going to make a positive symbol right there, okay? All right. Everybody get that down? Let's talk about rule number 2. When, again, we're multiplying or dividing, okay. When multiplying, dividing, okay, if both your integers are negative, okay, the answer will also be positive, and that's the difference. Is that when you multiply and divide integers, if you have two negatives, they make a positive. So show me two negatives, right? Here's a negative times a negative. Put them together, they make positive. Okay, so that's the main difference between adding and subtracting and multiplying and dividing. Negative times negative makes positive. All right. Okay, now sometimes you're going to work with integers in rule 3 where one is a negative and one is a positive. So when you multiply when multiplying or dividing, if one integer is positive, and the other integer is the opposite, negative, okay, then the answer is negative. Okay, so again, if one integer is positive and the other integer is negative, okay, the answer will be negative. So go ahead and get this down, and I will show you a visual way to remember this. So Ms. Cotran, how are we going to remember how to multiply and divide integers? Those are a lot of rules. Well, I have a very special guest, and his name is Bob. Say, hi, Bob. Now, Bob, he's not very happy because he got beat up at school, okay? So when I asked him to tell me, Bob, what happened? He told me this story. He said, a positive times a negative is negative. A negative times a negative is positive. And a negative times a positive is negative. Okay, so you can use Bob's face to help you to remember signs. I'll also show you today how to use a triangle. So here are the rules that you're going to go ahead and fill in your boxes. You have a box that says positive because these are where your answers will be positive. And on the bottom box, you have a box that says negative. Here are where your answers are negative. And so, now Bob doesn't have this on his face, but you know that when you multiply two positive numbers together, you're going to get a positive. Remember? If you're multiplying two positives together, you get a positive. Now here's the difference. When you multiply or divide two negatives together, you also get a positive. Negative and a negative make positive when you multiply. Negative times negative makes positive. Okay? So those are your positive answers. So go ahead and get that down. So let's talk about how do you get negative answers. All right, so negative answers is when you have different signs. And you know that when you add and subtract different signs, or so when you add different signs that you subtract, right? Okay, so that's not the same thing here. When you have different signs, the answer is negative. Repeat what I said. When you have different signs, the answer is negative. Okay, so if you have a positive times a negative, that makes negative. Okay, if you have a negative times a positive, that also makes a negative answer. So go ahead and get that down. So now we're going to solve some multiplication and division problems with fact families. Okay, so I want to take what you know about fact families and apply it to integers. So remember how we did fact families in this triangle? Where we said, okay, well the fact family has three numbers in it. It has 6, 4, and 24. Well, that means that 6 times 4 is 24. Or if you look at it this way, 24 divided by 4 is 6. And what is 24 divided by 6? What's 24 divided by 6? Remember what it is? It's 4. Okay, so now what happens when we apply the negatives? We have a new triangle. Notice on this triangle, in the corners of the triangle, what signs are these? What signs are those? They're negative, and negative is going to be red, okay? What sign is at the top point of the triangle? What is this? It's a positive. It's a what? Positive. So we're actually going to use this triangle, okay? Use this triangle to solve these problems because this will help you remember the rules. So let's take a look at the first one. This one says, read it with me, it says, number 1, -6 times a -4. Okay, -6 times -4. Well, if this is a negative and this is a negative, that means that you're going to cover up these two parts of the triangle. Okay, cover up 6 and 4, right? And what's left? What's left here? Is that a positive? Yes, it would be a positive what? Positive 24. Very good. So I'm going to write that as positive 24, and I'll write it in blue. Great. Okay. What about number 2? Read it with me. It says +6 times a -4. So you have a +6 and a -4 this time. So this time you're going to cover up a positive on this triangle, so cover this one up, and you're going to cover up a negative. Okay. Okay, so what's left? What's left on the triangle? It's negative, yes? Negative? Okay. You know when you have different signs, a positive times a negative, that makes negative. And what is 6 times 4? 6 times 4 is 24. So this one's going to be -24. So here you had the same signs. They were both negative, but negative times negative is positive. Negative times negative is positive. So what you're doing in the middle of this triangle, you are multiplying or you are dividing. Okay? All right. So let's do 2 more. Now we're going to do some division. Okay, we're going to do some division problems. We're going to do -24 divided by +6. Read it with me. Negative 24 divided by positive 6. So on this triangle, you cover up a negative and you cover up a what? Positive. Okay? So what's left? What's left? What's this? It's negative. So negative 24 divided by positive 6, you see 24 divided by 6 is 4. But it's negative. Okay. The last one, we're dividing two negative numbers. What are we dividing? Negative 24 divided by negative 4. So we have two negatives. So if 24 is negative, we're going to cover up a negative. Negative 4 is negative. We're going to cover up this negative. And what's left, guys? What's the answer? What sign is it? It's positive. It's positive what? What's 24 divided by 4? 24 divided by 4 is 6. So the answer will be positive 6. Very good. Go ahead and get that down.